We'll talk about a guy who probably was playing for his job this past weekend, Billy Napier. Billy Napier in Florida take on Texas in the swamp and upset the AP poll preseason #1 Texas Longhorns. I started this off by talking about Florida. I don't really want to talk about Florida. I like Billy Napier. I like DJ Lagway. I think that team underperformed a lot so far this year. I think they are a lot better than what they have shown. Do 5 interceptions against LSU. That's the big talking point that everybody wants to go on. And look, I mean, they lost that game because they deserved to lose that game. But I think the ceiling is high for this Florida team. I think the ceiling is high for DJ Lagway. But again, that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about Texas. When you talk about teams like Penn State who have underperformed this season, Texas is #1. And there's a ton of stuff that's going to go into this. There's a ton of talk around Texas about Manning and what this team is and who they are, like what's their identity, what have they accomplished. Well, they're an AP poll #1. They're now officially outside of the top 25. Where do you go now? Where do you go now if you're Texas? You were the AP poll #1 to start the season. You had the preseason Heisman favorite. It was all set up for you to have a big step forward in trying to take this program towards a national championship, and you've done the opposite. You're out of the national championship talk 7 weeks into the season. We're not even in November, and you're out of it. Texas coming to the SEC, I've always believed that Texas is a big program. They obviously are. Again, like Penn State, they have history, they have tradition, they have a lot of draws that bring players and coaches in. I think Steve Sarkisian is a fantastic coach. As a Bama fan, I was heartbroken when we lost him. But and I don't think this is on Sark necessarily. I think that there's a lot of factors that went into this to put Texas where they currently are now. I thought after last season, I bought into the hype. I thought that Texas was going to be the team that makes a big spearheaded run into the playoffs and potentially have a chance to win the whole thing. But this is a major step back for Texas. So the first thing is, and this is the icing on the top of the cake. This is the part that everybody scrapes off the top and says, "Oh, well, here's your problem." We have to talk about Arch Manning. I mean, the dude was a preseason Heisman favorite. Now he's not even going to sniff New York, which has been obvious for the past couple of weeks now. Quarterback play is a big issue. One thing that's not talked about enough is the running back play out of Texas. The running back play out of Texas, nobody in that running back room has run for more than 100 yards in a game. And that's a problem if you're Texas. If you have a quarterback that's struggling and you can't get the ground game going, you're stuck in quicksand. You're not going to do anything. The defense has played okay for Texas, but if your offense can't get moving with a guy like Steve Sarkisian as your play caller and you can't get the ball moving, that's a serious issue for Texas. A couple more stats that kind of condemn the run game. Wisner he was their leading rusher for a game so far this season. He had 80 yards against Ohio State. They haven't cracked that for the rest of the year. They play teams like Sam Houston. This past weekend, Arch Manning was their leading rusher with 37 yards against Florida. What are they doing? They have too much potential, too much talent. They have a great offensive coordinator. I don't understand where this giant step back has come from Texas. And I'll say that Sarkisian probably saw it coming last year. I think he knew that Arch Manning was not going to be the guy to lead them forward. You heard all the calls for him to start over Quentin Ewers, and you heard a lot of the chatter around Arch Manning, but I think Sarkisian really knew that he was not going to be the guy to carry them forward. But what are you going to do if you're Sarkisian? You can't say, "Oh, well, we're going to go get another quarterback out of the portal." We have a Manning sitting on our bench. He's going to play football for name alone. But I think that he secretly knew this. He was pretty low key for most of what I saw in the preseason hype and the preseason polls and all this kind of stuff. But I don't know where Texas go from here. You're in a serious rebuild situation, kind of like Penn State. And to be fair, rebuilding college football teams this day and age is much easier than it was in the past. You don't have to wait for a guy to develop for a couple of years as a true freshman. You go get guys out of the portal. And again, Texas is a huge draw. They're not nearly as in a deep of a hole as a team like Penn State is, but the big downside for them is they play SEC ball. It's tough games every week. I haven't actually looked at Texas's schedule, and they do have a fairly light SEC schedule. But I mean, again, they're another team that's on the outside looking in now. They don't control their own destiny. They're outside of the top 25. They're not going to be inside of the 12 for the playoff committee. They and Penn State are in a very similar situation this season. I wouldn't say as a whole. I would say as a whole, Penn State um, doesn't really have a direction. I think Steve Sarkisian has a direction for Texas that he's going to try and take them in, but this year is not going to be that year. It's a huge step back for Texas.